All right, let's talk about something I'm pretty sure you've experienced. Ever feel like your brain is this walking, talking encyclopedia of the most random facts imaginable, but then the important stuff just seems to evaporate? Yeah, let's dive into that very relatable puzzle. I mean, think about it. You can probably recall in perfect detail some super specific, totally bizarre piece of information you saw scrolling at 2 in the morning. And yet that list of 5 simple things you needed from the store, poof, it's gone, just completely gone. It's a really common and, let's be honest, kind of frustrating experience. So today we're going to figure out why it happens. This is the perfect example, right? The fact that wombats poop cubes? Unforgettable. Your new super important password for work might as well have been written in invisible ink. But here's the thing, this isn't a flaw. It's actually a fascinating feature of how the ADHD brain is wired. So, to really get this, we're going to go on a little tour. Let's imagine the brain isn't some perfectly organized library. Instead, picture it as a quirky museum, a cabinet of curiosities, just filled with the strangest, most wonderful things. So, our first stop on the tour? The acquisition department. This is where the museum gets all its cool and bizarre exhibits. And you know who runs this department? A powerful little chemical called dopamine. You see, the ADHD brain absolutely craves novelty. When it bumps into something new or surprising or just plain weird, it gets a little hit of dopamine. That chemical reward basically tells the brain, whoa, this is good stuff, keep it. It's kind of like a magpie spotting a shiny object. It just has to have it. And what you end up with is this huge difference in what you remember. A weird historical fact, that delivers a big dopamine reward, so it sticks. But routine instructions? So boring. There's no novelty, no dopamine spike, so that information just slips right through. All right, next up on the tour is the curation system. So now the museum has collected all these random facts. How does it decide which ones get a prime spot on display? Well, this is where hyperfocus comes into play. You might start with a totally practical goal, right? Like how to cook pasta. But one interesting link can send you spiraling down a rabbit hole. And suddenly, pasta is a distant memory, and your brain is 100% absorbed in the world of penguins. The filter for what's important is, well, it's pretty weak. But the filter for what's interesting? It's incredibly strong. Which brings us to the one simple rule that really governs this whole curation system, and it overrides almost everything else. Interest is always greater than importance. The brain doesn't prioritize by what's useful, it prioritizes by what captures its attention in that moment. Okay, let's head into the next wing of the museum. Memory loves a story. This section explains why the absolute strangest exhibits are the ones that stick around forever. The secret? It turns out our brains are just wired for narrative. Think about it. A grocery list is just a bunch of disconnected data points. But a bizarre fact? It often has its own little narrative. It's funny, or it makes you feel something, or it's so unusual, it's like a tiny, self-contained story. And our brains are so much better at remembering stories than they are at remembering raw data. We have now arrived at the final part of our tour, the main exhibit hall. This is where we get into the paradox of recall. You know, why all these fascinating facts seem to pop into your head at the absolute most random times. See, the ADHD brain doesn't file things away like a neat, logical librarian. It's more like you're just wandering through a museum. Some random idea or word might make you glance over at a nearby exhibit, even if that exhibit has nothing to do with what you're talking about. The whole process is nonlinear, and that is exactly why you can be in a super serious meeting, trying to focus on quarterly reports, and all of a sudden your brain just serves up this incredible fact. Hey, did you know octopuses have 3 hearts? The connection is random, the timing is not helpful, but the fact itself was just too interesting to stay filed away. And this quote right here, it just perfectly captures the heart of our entire tour. The brain's collection isn't curated based on practical value. It's curated based on what sparks curiosity, what feels new and exciting, and what packs an emotional punch. Okay, we've seen all the exhibits, we've walked through the museum. Let's just step back for a second and look at the big picture of what's really happening here. It really just boils down to these 3 key drivers. First, your brain's reward system, dopamine, is always on the hunt for something new and different. Second, your focus system, hyperfocus, latches onto whatever's interesting, not what's important. And third, your memory system is just built to hold on to things that feel like a story. So if you remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. This isn't a broken memory system. It's just a different operating system. It's not a bug that needs to be fixed. It's a unique feature that prioritizes curiosity and narrative over boring old routine. And that leaves us with one final question to think about. When you look at your own personal collection of random facts, what do you see? Do you see a cabinet full of useless clutter? Or do you see a treasure chest just brimming with fascinating stories that make the world a more interesting place? The perspective? Well, that's yours to choose. Thanks for joining us.